Hey, in this recording I will do development work, development of a Helm chart called binderhub-service. The goal is to add a configuration option to the Helm chart, named like this. And the outcome of configuring this should be that credentials to the library Google Cloud Logging or other Google related libraries should be able to consume these credentials, which represents a Google Cloud service count. So the first steps in this is to technically add this to be allowed configuration in the Helm chart. And to do that, I will add it in the default values, a blank entry. I will make the schema for the values file, allow it, and I will have a development test entry to validate against. So I will update 3 files, and first of all I will just take a Google Cloud service count as an example for me to test against. So this is the binderhub-service project on my computer, and let's see this. Step 1, I will add an entry. It should be for the deployment resource, could be here for example, extra credentials. It should default to empty objects. No, maybe. I think either that or Google Cloud. What was it named? Google service count key. Yeah, let's make it that this is a string and it's empty by default. Then this is an object, this is a string, and the schema is simple as compared to allowing null values, etc. Okay, and we add something to the schema. Extra env, I added it right above, so let's do something similar. The extra credentials should be an object with no additional properties beside those we define, but we know the properties names. We don't have to. The properties names should be objects of their own, and the example string. Do we have a string example? Properties like repository. Okay, so I'll copy paste, and it should be Google service count key of a type string. Properties. Okay. An object, no additional things inside it beside this property, which is a string. We could possibly make it allowed to be null. Never mind, I think. Okay, and we will allow this to not be set as well, I think. Yes. And in lint and validate values, we add an example, extra Google service count key, and we take example string. Okay, so this is an example of how we would configure it, and now we have a default value, which is empty string, and we allow it in the schema, and we have a development test value here. But a check we can do already is to make sure that we are still passing schema validation by using this the default values and those. So I'll use a script first to generate this schema, because this is a YAML file, and we need a JSON file for the Helm chart command line interface. It only accepts the JSON version, but we're working with a YAML representation for simplicity. So tools, once we have generated this JSON version, we can do validate script, and it says it's fine. Excellent. Next, let's make this configuration have an impact. And the first impact we want is that we want extra credentials here to be rendered inside a Kubernetes secret, which is already being mounted to the deployment, the binderhub pod, where we want this credentials to be made available. So in order to do that, let's do something here saying first a comment describing what this is about. Or let me not start there. Let's do GCP. This is the file name. This will be a key within the secret, and it should be a file name. Also, when we mount, it will be translated into a file name. So GCP service count key.json perhaps. And inside it we will render the value, and it should be something like values extra credentials. This, but at the same time we should only conditionally render this, so I will do it like this instead, with. So if this is a truthy value, then this will render. So the with statement is like a condition, an if statement, that if this is truthy, we will be able to reference this specific value directly with a dot going onwards. So if that was truthy, let's render that here. But this is a value that can be multi-line string. So we need to consider that we have here 1, 2, an indentation of 4, but if the next line renders, we can get in trouble. So we should do an indent 2, 4 rather. Is saying, and we should white space jump left. This part removes all this white space, and the n means create a new line, and an indent 4 means indent 4 steps. So in practice, this is the same as removing that, and this is also the same as this. Okay, so this part is the same as this, but it's more readable. It gets messy if you don't have indentation, so this is the practice we're doing. Okay, so I think like this we will render that string here if that string is truthy. So let's try. And we can try this by doing Helm template. We need to specify the binderhub-service. This is a folder inside having the Helm chart in it. And we'll do show only templates. This is a file called secret YAML. And we got stuff rendered, but we care about not chart config, not binderhub config. There isn't a value, but at the same time we didn't pass any values. We didn't set this config, so let's do it by passing the values called values files. First values, tools, template, then validate config values. And now let's see. Now we got the GCP service count key. Nice. And the formatting seems all right. With that part of the Kubernetes secret, the next step becomes to consider how to reference this. Because there is a file now in the container that gets mounted, because this entire secret gets mounted. Let's pause and look at that mounting, by the way. So there is in the deployment resource having a template for a pod describing in its pod specification that there is a volume that we're mounting coming from a secret name. This is the secret we have modified. So the secret is declared as a volume, and the volume is being mounted in this location. So we should have a file now for this Kubernetes secret key value key will be a file name that should be made available like this. So this is a file we should reference now using an environment variable as well. And we do that because the library called the Google logging library we want to provide the credentials to will respect this specific environment variable, and we should take this. It should be a value from a Kubernetes secret that we reference. So we want this environment variable. No, we should just have this. The value of this environment variable should just be the file path. It shouldn't be the content of this. So, and the variable name should be Google application credentials. So this should point to the file, which we maybe have written out in the Kubernetes secret based on if it was specified or not. So similar to that statement, we conditionally do this. We can do with, but we will not use the context. I'll do an if. So if this is a truthy value, then we render this environment variable as well. And to confirm that things work, we can use the Helm template command again. Clear Helm template show only. Previously we looked at the secret file, but now let's look at the deployment file. And I'll do grep env, and I will look at content 20 lines after we find the string env. Missing value for command. Mistake has been done. On line 59, so let's look at 59. Oh, it should be end. And here we see something. We see the env I found and 20 lines after, and here we see Google application credentials. Excellent. And if we now delete passing the values configuring, the environment variable is not specified. Excellent. So have we completed the steps? We have added the configuration, updating 3 files, values, schema, and development values. We render it in the Kubernetes secret under new key, yes. We declare an environment variable to point to the mountain file. Excellent. Now let's also do here in development tips. I also suggest that you do tools validate against schema also now. It checks out. And that was the task, I think. Let's see if, let's make a commit. What are we doing? We are adding config. Add config extra credentials Google. And let's not type this wrong now. What was it called? Okay. And creating a pull request. Add config, submit. This should trigger tests, and I think also one test will run that is relevant to check. And so when we do lint and validate on our own computer, this is also done in the automation here, like lint and validate render templates. But we can also, in this automation, do something beyond this. We can validate it that the rendered resources, like the deployment and the Kubernetes secret we have manipulated, that they are valid Kubernetes secrets and deployment resources still. Because sometimes what you could do is that you could have you end up creating an invalid Kubernetes resource, and we haven't done checks about that locally. But this will do it by starting a Kubernetes cluster, rendering template, and trying to validate it against and this is the step, Helm template -- validate. But for this you need to have a Kubernetes server to interact with. And we do in this environment here. It passed, excellent. And it starts correctly. And these tests shouldn't be influenced here because we haven't changed anything in how this test is run currently. Okay, so I think that wraps up the task of developing this Helm chart configuration, and I'll leave it at that. Bye.